All right. My name is Jasmin Moore, and I'm the Director of Sustainability for the City of Lawrence and Douglas County. And I am honored to have join me today Dorothy Barnett, who's the Executive Director of the Climate and Energy Project. Today, we're going to talk about renewable energy in Douglas County and the state of Kansas. And I just want to welcome Dorothy. Thanks for being here with us today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Jasmine. Happy Earth Week. Glad to be here. Always happy to talk about renewable energy and especially the good work that's happening in Lawrence. For those of you who don't know, the Climate and Energy Project is a Kansas-based nonprofit that is largely focused on the economic benefits of renewable energy and energy efficiency as the solutions that work for Kansas. Our mission has expanded in recent years to address the impacts of climate change on public health and solutions that build community resilience. I'm super excited to be here and to talk to you about the work that we do and about the great work that's happening in Lawrence.
Great. Well, I thought we'd first start off by talking about some of the recent developments in the city of Lawrence. We, as a city, recently adopted an ordinance which set some pretty ambitious goals to achieve 100% renewable energy by 2035 for both city operations as well as citywide. And then one of the things that just came out in the news in the last couple weeks was some coverage related to wind energy in Kansas and how wind energy is really overtaking coal in terms of production. And there's only a couple states in the country where this is the case. So could you talk about how significant these types of developments are when it comes to renewable energy in the state?
Sure, Jasmine. It's very significant. We know that technically Kansas has the resource to lead the nation and supply the country with clean renewable energy. This really happened. The reason that we are doing so well is because customers, cities like Lawrence, businesses, residential customers really want clean energy. There's a market for it now. It is the lowest cost new resource. And we've seen from experience that the utilities are able to to technically integrate it into their energy mix. In the last months of 2019, up until this year, actually, battery storage was considered something of the future. And we often heard people say, oh, if we only could have battery storage. Well, until recently, that was kind of what we were looking at for the future. But in the last quarter of 2019, there were 8 major U.S. battery storage projects advanced and contracts were signed to sell energy from their facilities to major utilities, really showing that the growth of battery storage is here today. And so it makes it possible for cities like Lawrence to really take advantage of that 100% renewable energy. This growth in battery storage is being driven by increasing electricity prices and grid instability. The fact that commercial business owners who are looking to improve their bottom lines are doing so with renewable energy and battery storage. It's something that can really impact our carbon emissions. According to the U.S. Energy Information Agency, utility scale battery storage capacity in the U.S. could more than double by 2022. With our state's robust wind and solar resources, we're really poised to be one of those states that sees exponential growth in utility scale batteries. So congratulations to Lawrence. It's a really big deal that you all have announced this goal, and we're super excited to help in any way we can.
Thanks for sharing that about the batteries, Dorothy, because renewable energy and energy in as a sector is something that there's been a lot of advancements. I think 5 years ago, things looked a lot different than even today. And so to hear that even in a couple years, battery storage could really be scaled up to that level is really encouraging. When the city of Lawrence set this goal, part of the discussion was about like, how do we get there? And we acknowledged that we don't know all the answers at this point. But we do know that things are advancing so quickly in this industry that by the time we hit 2035, some of it we wouldn't even imagine what it could look like by then. So we're excited about this, and really, we're excited to work in partnership with the utilities and organizations within Kansas to help move forward on this goal.
It's interesting when I think about how far we've come. The Climate and Energy Project was started in 2007. I think we had 200 megawatts of wind power at that time. By the time all the projects that are under development get finished, the end of this year or next year, we'll be at 8,000 megawatts of wind energy generated. And as you said, wind has now overtaken coal as the generating source we've used the most in 2019, which is just unbelievable to think about, that where we've come from where we started.
Yeah, very exciting. So I want to move on. We've talked a lot about wind. Let's talk a little bit about solar. So one of the things that has been the talk of solar in the last couple of years is some demand charges that were instituted for Westar and KCP&L solar customers at the time. Now they're Evergy customers. And that was those demand charges were approved by the Kansas Corporation Commission. Could you talk to us about what impact that action had on the solar market and solar adoption in Kansas, and then what has happened since then?
Sure. So really, although the demand charges were implemented just a couple of years ago, the market, residential solar market, has really had a lot of instability since 2014, when the state legislature changed the net metering laws in Kansas. And so in 2014, the size limits got smaller. Residential customers could only do a smaller system. Commercial customers went from being able to do a 200 kilowatt system down to a 100 kilowatt system. So there were some changes in size limits. We also went from being able to true up or bank solar credits annually to only being able to do that monthly, which changed the economics for residential solar projects. When the demand charges went into effect, immediately afterwards, we saw a fairly dramatic decrease in residential solar systems. But to give you a sense of the impact of the policies generally in Kansas around residential solar, Kansas ranks 43rd out of 50 states in jobs per capita in the solar industry. Missouri, a neighboring state, ranks 27th. Nebraska ranks 17th. And Colorado ranks 8th. Those are from the Solar Foundation, which tracks jobs in an annual jobs report. Only Oklahoma ranks worse than Kansas in our jobs per capita in solar. When you think about the fact that Evergy now has 1.6 million customers, 2/3 of the utility customers in Kansas, together, through last year, Westar had 833 residential systems, and KCP&L had 337. So, a little over 1,100 systems collectively for our residential customers, out of 1.6 million. So we have not done well. We have a top 10 solar resource. We have lots of rooftop space that we could be utilizing for schools, for churches, for businesses, for residential communities. but we just have not been able to come up with policies that allow that to grow. You have a couple of, businesses right there in Lawrence, Good Energy Solutions, Cromwell Environmental, that really are companies that are trying to grow, trying to be good community members, and unfortunately, our policymakers, our policies have not really helped their businesses.
So I know that there was a recent Kansas Supreme Court decision related to this same issue of demand charges. What was that decision, and is it final?
Yeah, so we got some really great news a few weeks ago in a time when we all could really use some great news. And that was that you mentioned earlier the KCC, Kansas Corporation Commission, had initially approved the demand charges. We were part of that original docket at the KCC. Unfortunately, we lost, and the KCC approved demand charges. Two of the interveners in the case, Vote Solar and the Sierra Club, appealed to the district court that decision by the KCC, and they lost at the district court, sided with the KCC, and they decided to appeal to the Kansas Supreme Court. And we were thrilled when the Supreme Court said that they would hear the case, which they did in December. And just a few weeks ago, they ruled that demand charges are discriminatory and can't be, and solar customers or people who self-generate cannot be discriminated against with those demand charges. And so they remanded it back to the Kansas Corporation Commission so that the commission could change the way that they had responded. And so we just learned recently that Evergy is not going to appeal that decision. And so it will return to the KCC to determine what's next. Our Clean Energy Business Council is going to send a letter to the commission actually asking them to refund the demand charges that folks were charged in this discriminatory manner, and move customers back to the residential rate class that everyone else is. We don't know, how that will play out, but we will be at the table as those decisions are being made, and we'll be keeping people informed. For folks who are really interested in the solar situation, we do have a website, SaveKansasSolar.com, that we post updates specifically about residential solar and about the Supreme Court case. And so it's a good place to sign up and get more information from as things come to fruition.
Great. I think that's helpful. And I know that I've heard from a lot of people who were considering solar, and that demand charge was one of those things that was not helpful when they were looking at the economics of it. So now that has changed, I think that some of those people will get back to solar if that's something that they are able to financially commit to.
I do want to just clarify that currently, if you go solar, you will be under the demand charge until the KCC makes a determination of what's next. So if you're thinking about it, you might wait just a little while. We don't anticipate it will be a long process through the KCC, but visit Kansas Solar, SaveKansasSolar.com, to be able to keep up to date. Because currently, if you would sign up today, you would still be subjected to the demand charge. But
okay.
So just to clarify that.
Yes, thanks for that clarification. So on that same note of people that are considering different ways to reduce their energy use or to go renewable, I would be remiss if we didn't really acknowledge what is the current situation right now and the pandemic that we're experiencing. With the current stay-at-home order, many and most people are staying at home. And as a result of that, many of us will see our utility bills actually increase during this time period. And so I'm sure that many of us are also thinking about how do we reduce that as much as we can. So, what advice do you have for people who are in that situation of trying to reduce how much their energy bill is each month, and maybe thinking about different ways? What are the highest impact things that they can do right now?
Sure. If you're thinking about installing solar, that's a good way to offset some of your energy costs. As I said, we're not clear what the structure is going to look like in the near term, but it's certainly something, for a longer term investment to consider. But the first thing we always encourage people to do is to think about their building envelope. Think about your home. Do you have decent insulation? Do you have any doors or windows that have gaps that are leaking hot or cool air that need to be caulked? How old and inefficient is your HVAC unit? If you can seal up your home to avoid energy loss, and maybe upgrade your appliances if you have old appliances, or think about, do you really need that beer fridge out in the garage, which is probably using a lot of extra energy. That's what we would recommend folks think about first. If you have some money that you want to spend on efficiency to help save energy. Lights that maybe during a normal time period don't get a lot of use might be getting more use than normal. Do those, the basement rec room lights, are they LEDs? Maybe it wasn't a big deal when the kids were all at school, but now that they're all using more electricity, can you encourage them to turn off lights more effectively? From a behavior standpoint, again, turning off lights that aren't in use is important, and it can save energy. But something that we don't often think about with all of our electronics going is, even phone cords, game consoles that aren't in use, when they're plugged in, they're still pulling some power. We call that a phantom load. And so thinking about, do you have some power strips that you could plug everything into, and then when those things aren't in use, shut off the power strip? Are some things that you could do to try to help save some energy while we have more people home. The other thing I would mention is that normally we say to people, wash your clothes in cold water is a good way to save energy. But with the pandemic, they're really recommending that you wash in hot water. And so thinking about maybe if your washer has a setting that you can wash on hot and rinse on cold, is one way to both fight germs, but also try to save a little energy along the way.
Great. Those are great tips. I know that one of the things that we've done, especially during Earth Week this week, is I have two boys that are elementary age. And so we have a couple times during the day when they just go around the whole house and turn off all the lights. And they move from room to room pretty quickly. And so sometimes they forget that to turn off that light when they leave. So I think those are all great tips. I also wanted to mention that for those who are interested in transitioning to renewable energy, they have some options beyond just installing solar on their house. I don't know if you could talk a little bit about, like Evergy has some subscription models so that you can use renewable energy, and especially if you're in an apartment or something like that, installing solar is not really an option for you in the first place.
Yeah, so I'm an Evergy customer in Hutchinson, and I am signed up for the renewable energy tariff. I get all my power from wind, 100%. Costs me maybe an extra $3 a month. to get my power from wind. It's based on how much electricity you use, and so it can fluctuate a little bit. But that's one of the commitments that I make at my home. We're a fairly low energy user with just my husband and I here. You do have the option, if you are an Evergy customer, to sign up for their community solar project. You can buy some shares in a solar project. The solar project in the northeast part of the state, it's not been built yet, but they are taking names of people who are interested. You can sign up, and when it's fully subscribed, there will be a new solar project in the northeast part of the state. If you are a city or a school or someone who needs a larger amount of renewable energy, you can buy into Westar's Renewables Direct program or Evergy's Renewables Direct program. That's a program that lets you basically do a fuel swap. And so instead of having Evergy's traditional mix of electricity, which includes coal and gas and nuclear and wind, you can just get your energy or a portion of your energy from a new wind farm. Right now is what they're doing. So you would pay all the other cost for service, but instead of paying your fuel cost, which for Evergy runs about 2.2 cents a kilowatt hour. You can buy into the Renewables Direct. The one that they, Soldier Creek, that I think is fully subscribed now, was 1.8 cents. So you save a little bit on your fuel costs to help lock in some savings over the long term. And so there are options for folks who are interested in renewable energy, either through your utility, individually. So lots of ways to do your part.
Great. Well, I want to thank you again for joining me today in conversation, Dorothy. As a final thought, if you could get people to take one meaningful action to support the mission of the Climate and Energy Project, what would that be?
So I would encourage you to visit our website and sign up to be a Climate and Energy Voter Ambassador. We know that the most important thing we can do is to elect people who share our values. Candidates at all levels who support expanding clean energy and protecting the environment are a huge reason why Lawrence has a 100% renewable energy goal. So through our Climate and Energy Voter Ambassador Program, we will provide tools to help you know which questions to ask during virtual or maybe eventually face-to-face candidate forums. Questions like, do you as a candidate support climate action? Do you support the Supreme Court's decision to help people go solar? Are they willing to take action on climate change? So the Climate and Energy Voters Take Action ambassadors will also have tools to be able to help you talk to your friends and family and your neighbors about voting. And so that's the thing that I would say is most important, is join us and register and vote, and make sure that you're voting for people who share your values about the environment, climate change, and clean energy.
Well, Dorothy, I appreciate you. I appreciate your dedication to renewable energy and energy in the state of Kansas. I think we're really fortunate to have an organization like the Climate and Energy Project here that's really advocating for renewable energy and clean energy for our state and community. So thank you again, and happy Earth Day, happy Earth Week. And if you'd like more information, the website is right there on the slide, climateandenergy.org. And if you would like more information about other events that we are offering to celebrate Earth Day and Earth Week, you can go to lawrence.ks.org/earth-day. Thanks again.
Thanks so much for having me, Jasmine, and congratulations to Lawrence for all of the outstanding work that you all are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yay!
We did it.
We did it. We did it. Not too bad. I didn't stumble too much this time. So.
No, I think it was great.
Okay.
All right. Well, I will let you know when it's posted, and I think that's it.
Okay. Have a great rest of the week, Jasmine. Thank
You
you.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.